You are not as intelligent as you think you are. For better or for worse, your idea of what makes a person intelligent has been fabricated by a broken school system that has long forgotten its intended purpose. A school system that has lost sight of its mission and falsified the definition of genius to mean someone who performs well on tests. But what does this mean for students? We exist in a system that demands maturity, but governs every aspect of a student's day. A system that leaves no student behind, but fails to understand why they cannot succeed. A system that speaks of challenging its students, yet it mainly acknowledges natural intelligence or giftedness. But what makes someone gifted? Picture for a moment. What do you see? Is it a love for learning, fluency in mathematics, and expansive vocabulary? What if I then told you that I don't believe that gifted kids exist in the first place? At least, not in the way we think they do. American schools tend to thrive off of the idea of gifted and talented students. Students whose status as gifted or talented are determined at a very early age and give parents and schools alike the hope that these are the kids who will make our future bright. There is a pervasive idea that each glimpse of above average performance will glimmer throughout the many changes of an individual's life. I mean, who wouldn't want to think that way? The idea of a gifted or talented child is attractive to parents and schools alike. To schools, gifted students are like the poster children for what a good student looks like. These students stand out from their peers, tend to care more about their grades and overall performance. They're often eager to please and strive for perfection in their work, often losing hours of sleep and time for leisure in exchange for better grades. What we fail to see is that those we call gifted or honor students need a stimulating educational environment. Modern school environments often do the exact opposite of nurturing a student's desire to learn by limiting a student's ability to explore, create, and specialize. But what makes even the best technically performing schools so sterile academically? I'll offer a bit of insight. First of all, most schools rely on standardized test scores to place students and determine their eligibility for graduation or college admission. The issue with this is that test scores and grades in general do not accurately reflect the full scope of a student's abilities. Hear me out. Students who struggle with testing could easily be intelligent and capable and do well in their classes, but test scores taken at face value might reflect a poor student. In the same way, students who are brilliant at recalling information and perform well on tests could be best at just that. Recalling information, spitting it back out on the test, and forgetting it. We all take unit tests in our classes. Every single unit, we prepare for and pass tests. Now, how many of you in this room looked at the review sheets this year, or in past years, if you looked at them at all, and actually remembered a majority of what was on it? No hands. The fact is that when we focus on testing rather than personal improvement and the acquisition of lasting knowledge, we cheat all students out of the kind of education that will actually last them a lifetime. Now, many might argue that it's a good thing that we stress good grades above all else. It's important to know that kids are putting in the work and not slacking, because it is important to their future, since colleges and universities will look primarily at academic performance and test grades, whether we agree with it or not. And many might also argue that it's most efficient to select gifted and honor students early because we feel that they will do the most when given the best possible resources. Essentially, it is more time and resource efficient to offer the best to the best performing students because they are more likely to pursue higher education. However, Making the best possible resources available only to kids in higher level school programs is damaging to the future of American innovation. The demand for skilled thinkers and inventors as the world attempts automated transport and space travel is at an all-time high. But school systems are not developing minds that are capable of doing so. Most honor students are so focused on grades that they lose sight of how they are meant to acquire them. The best cheaters, work distributors, and chronic procrastinators I know are honors students. Meanwhile, there's a severe lack of hands-on courses available to students. The last time we really get to create and get scored on something other than pen and paper assignments is when we take tech ed in middle school. But why is this an issue? I mean, most of you don't miss it. Most of you don't miss Mr. Bora, even though he was a chief, you know. But by focusing on standard academics, we make students feel that careers in something like a trade are less important or not as valuable, and more of a last resort than a fulfilling career possibility. When you think about it, you know, if you don't get the best grades, you might think, okay, maybe I could go into welding or constructing or the culinary arts. We always think of it as a second resort when you could do really well for yourself in any of these trades. But since we focus mainly on these sorts of academics, it's not stressed enough in the fact that we need them for our future. So these gifted programs pick the best looking students out of the bunch in the hopes that their performance will be unwavering, only to find out that in doing so they have left behind plenty of capable students who are overlooked because their test scores or class performance isn't impressive enough. Students who might not do well in a classroom but have extensive knowledge about automotive mechanics or carpentry or culinary arts. These are the students left behind in the school system we exist in today. So, we want to go to space. We want our cars to drive themselves. We want our buildings to reach new heights. But who's going to design them? Who will put them together? We are not providing America with the skilled hands necessary to achieve its goals. But let's say we set aside skills or interests for a second. Let's not worry about job prospects or any of that. It's the physical environment of schools that make them so destructive to a student's ability to learn. Because nobody walks into a classroom like this, or this, or this, and feels enthusiastic about sitting in there for an hour or so to do repetitive work. Yet, you're expected to be. In fact, those lights you sit under every day, yeah, those are literally ruining your vision of productivity. Exposure to fluorescent lighting has been shown to have particularly negative effects, even if there has not been a diagnosis of a chronic illness. One study from 2012 evaluated employee performance in workplaces that used conventional fluorescent lights versus LED lighting and noted there was an increased fatigue as well as reduced cognitive ability. Now, that LED lighting is much better because that solution essentially exposes kids to a 24/7 strobe light, resulting in similar consequences. It's no wonder kids don't want to be in school. They learn to hate school environments from a young age. And no, it's not because of those damn phones. It's because the classrooms we spend hours in are subconsciously stress-inducing. Not many students at Brewster might agree, but many students at Brewster might agree, but many might not. Luckily for us, our school has a massive budget. And I mean massive, okay? And we've created better learning spaces for our students. But quite frankly, it's not just about us. Nationwide, we're seeing a lack of funding for public schools and an issue with improper distribution of funds. So at the end of the day, most students in America are confined to environments that make their education tedious and a burden to them. Now, that being said, I'd like to introduce a very underground and underappreciated artist who reflects the experience of a stifling school environment in his art, and I'd like to show his work to you. At the meager age of 11, my brother started to create drawings like this to vent his frustrations about his educational environment. At this young age, he was already completely aware of the sensation of being constantly watched and scrutinized, as seen in this piece, where a group of stick children cower under security cameras. Or this piece, which displays his distaste for school administration and their desire to suppress and control. Sure, his messages were a bit extremist, but the point is that kids in elementary school are already forming negative opinions about school. It's not about middle school drama or teenage rebellion. It's a core consequence of the types of environments we put our children in. But what does this have to do with my initial points about the focus of schools and giftedness or talent? Well, gifted programs, specifically, have generated an environment of high stress and criticism for children who we now know are fully aware of how they are being perceived. This perception clouds their judgment of themselves, often discouraging them from simply enjoying their childhood. When we place labels on children, especially those that determine their quality or worth from a young age, we place a gap in their souls that they will spend a large majority of their life trying to fill. Grades and academic recognition, they will find, will satisfy the emptiness for some time, but they will always be chasing an unrealistic standard for themselves. From increased levels of stress as students keep up with high expectations, to discouraging bright kids who have not been selected for, the pitfalls of these special programs are condemning the American education system to a slow but steady decline into a sterile office worker production line. If you ask me for a remedy for all this, I wouldn't be able to tell you. I'm a high school honor student, after all, not a genius. And what I believe we can do as a society, however, is to redefine intelligence for ourselves and ask our school systems to do the same. Not just for us, it's a bit too late for that, but for the future of innovation in America and the success of our students. Thank you.